You open your eyes, and already you're completely spent. But here's what they don't tell you. That exhaustion isn't a character flaw. It's not a sign you're weak or incapable. It's actually a sophisticated warning system, your spirit's way of telling you that your sovereignty has been compromised, that somewhere along the line, you've started paying rent on spaces that don't belong to you. Think about it. When you were a child, your energy was yours, completely, unapologetically. You could be fascinated by an anthill for an hour, then suddenly drop it and run to chase a butterfly. There was no loyalty to the anthill, no guilt about abandoning it. Your attention moved where your curiosity led. Somewhere between then and now, that changed. You learned to mortgage your attention. You started paying in advance for approval that might never come. You began maintaining emotional real estate in other people's dramas. You've been running a silent, draining subsidy program for everything that asks for your energy. The modern world runs on a simple but devastating equation. Your distraction equals someone else's profit. Every notification, every urgent email, every dramatic headline is fishing in the same pond, your finite reservoir of focused awareness. And because you're a conscientious person, you keep biting. You think, what if this is important? What if I miss something? What if they need me? Let me ask you this. When was the last time that constant availability actually served you? When did scanning the news for hours make you feel more secure? When did worrying about a future that hasn't arrived change its outcome? You've been outsourcing your peace to circumstances you cannot control, and the interest rates are crushing. This isn't just about feeling tired. This is about the silent architecture of your attention. Right now, you're probably maintaining dozens of invisible subscriptions, emotional, mental, and psychological commitments that drain you daily without your conscious consent. The subscription to other people's opinions of you, the subscription to outdated versions of yourself, the subscription to hypothetical disasters. Each one automatically renews, drawing from your account of presence. The Stoics understood this 2,000 years ago. Seneca wrote letters about the plague of busyness, about how people wear their exhaustion as a badge of honor, while their inner life collapses from neglect. He observed that we often suffer more in imagination than in reality, that the stories we tell ourselves drain us more than the actual events. Your problem isn't the world's noise. It's that you've forgotten how to turn down the volume dial you absolutely possess. Let's talk about the mechanics of this drain. Imagine you're a castle with limited guards. You can't possibly defend every inch of the wall equally. Wise defense means knowing which gates matter most, and which can be left unguarded because they lead nowhere important. Yet right now, you probably have guards stationed at every possible entrance, watching empty roads for invaders who will never come. You're protecting relationships that ended years ago. You're defending against criticisms nobody actually made. You're preparing for conversations that will never happen. This is why you're exhausted. You're defending ghost territories. Now consider this radical idea. What if most of what worries you isn't actually yours to manage? What if your sense of responsibility has expanded beyond what's actually within your control? The Stoics divided the world into two categories: what's up to us and what isn't. Your opinions, your values, your choices, these are yours. Other people's reactions, global events, the past, the weather, these aren't. Yet look at where you're investing. You're trying to control the weather while letting your own garden wither. Let's get painfully specific. That person whose approval you're seeking, have you ever considered that their capacity to see you clearly might be limited by their own wounds? That their opinion is more about their lens than your essence? That colleague whose drama consumes your team meetings, their emotional regulation isn't your department. The news cycle that triggers your anxiety, you're watching it, doesn't change it. The past mistake you keep revisiting, it's already done its teaching. Continuing to pay it attention is just interest on a debt that's been settled. Here's where we move from philosophy to practice. This week, I want you to conduct what I call an energy audit. For 3 days, carry a small notebook or use your phone's notes app. Every time you feel that familiar dip in energy, that sigh, that tension in your shoulders, that mental fog, pause and ask, what just happened? Where did my energy go? Don't judge, just document. You'll likely discover patterns. Maybe it's every time you check social media mid-morning. Maybe it's certain people's voices in meetings. Maybe it's the commute home when your mind replays every interaction of the day. This isn't about blaming external factors. It's about recognizing the cost of certain engagements. Now, the second step. For each drain you identify, ask this question: is this mine to carry? If someone is complaining for the 10th time about the same problem with no intention of solving it, is their emotional state yours to manage? If the news is filled with conflict you can't influence, is watching it for hours a necessary duty or a choice? If you're worrying about a presentation 3 weeks from now, is today's worry improving that future moment? The third step is where your power truly lies, redrawing the boundaries of your responsibility. This doesn't mean becoming uncaring. It means becoming strategic about where your care creates actual value. It means shifting from reactive engagement to chosen investment. Let's talk about digital detachment, because this is where most modern energy leaks occur. Your devices are engineered to create what psychologists call variable reward schedules, the same mechanism that makes slot machines addictive. Every swipe could bring validation, news, connection, or drama. Your brain gets hooked on the could. The solution isn't necessarily deleting apps, though that can help. The solution is changing your relationship to the could. Try this experiment tomorrow. For the first hour after you wake up, don't touch any screens. Don't check email, social media, or news. Let your mind have its own thoughts first. You'll notice something remarkable. Anxiety that feels personal often turns out to be borrowed. The tightness in your chest you thought was yours might actually be residue from yesterday's headlines or other people's emergencies. When you give yourself space before consuming, you start to distinguish between your actual concerns and the concerns you've absorbed. Now, let's address the most intimate attachment, your relationship with your own thoughts. You have approximately 6,000 thoughts per day. Most of them are repeats from yesterday. Many are outright false. Your mind generates thoughts like your stomach generates acid. It's just what it does. The problem isn't the thoughts. It's that you believe you are your thoughts. That when your mind says you're failing, you think that's a report rather than just mental weather. The Stoic practice of viewing from above can revolutionize this. When a draining thought arises, imagine rising above yourself. See yourself as if from a balcony, then from the roof, then from a plane. Watch the thought move through that small person below. Notice how, from this perspective, the thought loses its urgency. It becomes just one of millions of thought events happening on the planet right now. This creates what psychologists call cognitive distance, the space between you and the thought where choice becomes possible. But here's what most people miss. Detachment isn't a one-time decision. It's a daily practice of small, consistent choices. It's noticing you're scrolling mindlessly and choosing to put the phone down. It's hearing gossip and choosing not to add to it. It's feeling the urge to fix someone and choosing instead to trust their capacity. Each choice is a rep in the gym of your sovereignty. Let me share a story about the power of this practice. A client of mine, we'll call him David, was constantly exhausted. He managed a large team, had 2 young children, and felt responsible for everyone's happiness. During our energy audit, he discovered something startling. He was spending at least 10 hours a week worrying about problems that hadn't happened yet. He called it preemptive problem solving. I asked him to calculate the cost. 10 hours weekly times 52 weeks was over 500 hours annually, more than 20 full days spent in imagined futures. David began practicing what we called temporal containment. When a future worry arose, he'd ask, "Can I do something about this right now?" If yes, he'd take one small action. If no, he'd literally say out loud, "This is not current business," and visualize placing it in a filing cabinet labeled future to be reviewed when relevant. Within weeks, his energy changed. He started sleeping through the night. His team actually reported he seemed more present. The problems he'd worried about either didn't happen or were manageable when they arrived. But the real shift was this. He reclaimed those 500 hours. That's time with his children, time for his health, time for actual rest. This brings us to the heart of Stoic detachment. It's not about having less care, it's about having more intentional care. It's about moving from scattered reactive attention to focused, chosen investment. The detached person isn't cold. They're actually more capable of genuine warmth because their warmth isn't being leaked everywhere. Their compassion is directed rather than dissipated. Think of it this way: your energy is like water. Right now, you probably have dozens of tiny leaks, little drips of attention going to things that don't nourish you. The goal isn't to become a sealed container with no outflow. The goal is to become an intelligent irrigation system, directing the flow to what you've consciously decided to nurture. This week, I challenge you to one conscious detachment practice each day. Monday, digital sunrise, that first hour screen-free. Tuesday, the pause before responding. When someone makes a demand, literally count to 3 before answering. Wednesday, the not mine experiment. Each time you feel drained, ask aloud, "Is this mine to carry?" Thursday, thought labeling. When anxious thoughts arise, say, "I'm having the thought that," creating that crucial distance. Friday, the energy audit review. Look at your notes, what patterns emerge? Saturday, conscious consumption. Before scrolling or watching, ask, "What do I actually need right now?" Sunday, sovereignty reflection. What one attachment will you release this coming week? The transformation happens in the accumulation of these small choices. Each time you choose not to engage with what drains you, you reinforce your sovereignty. Each time you redirect that energy to what nourishes you, you build your inner fortress brick by brick. People will notice, they'll comment on your calm. They'll wonder why you're not participating in the collective anxiety. Some might even try to pull you back in because your detachment highlights their own entanglement. This is where your practice deepens, maintaining your center without apology, without explanation, without needing others to understand your boundaries. Remember, the world will always have emergencies. The news will always have crises. People will always have opinions. Your inbox will always have demands. None of this is new. What's available to you now is a new relationship to all of it, one where you decide what merits your life force. You weren't born to be a relief fund for every emotional disaster. You weren't designed to be a 24/7 news bureau monitoring global events. You weren't meant to be a permanent therapist on call for every person who knows your number. You are here to live your particular life with your particular gifts. Every ounce of energy spent elsewhere is a theft from that purpose. So start the reclamation today, not with grand gestures, but with the next small choice. The next time you feel that familiar drain, pause, breathe, ask the question, "Is this mine?" And listen for the answer that comes from your deepest wisdom. Not from guilt, not from obligation, not from fear, but from your unshakable core. The weight you've been carrying, you can set it down. Not eventually, now. Your hands have been full for so long, you've forgotten what empty palms feel like. They're waiting to receive what actually belongs to you. your one precious, unbounded life. If this journey towards sovereignty resonates with you, please let me know by hitting the like button. It helps this message reach others who need it. For more practical Stoic wisdom for modern life, subscribe to Stoic Mindset Mastery. And in the comments, I'd love to know, what's the first thing you're detaching from today?